Welcome to another episode of Kicking It with the Belt Guy. It's me, Zain. We don't have to waste any time with the intro. We're going to bring on one of my favorite social media Twitter accounts and just a genuinely cool, chill guy with great content. But I'm going to let him talk a little bit about himself. Let's go on, and bring in Nick Falato. I want to make sure I say this right. I don't want to disrespect the heritage or the name.
No disrespect to the heritage or the name. It is Falato. You nailed it. And I got to tell you, there has been so many bad pronunciations of my last name. There's pronunciations that people can get a laugh at as well. I'm sure people can.
I can see where that can potentially go.
Yeah, when I was in the Marines, Zain, I took so much shit. I don't know if I can curse on here.
Of course you can. This is your platform.
Awesome. Thank you, buddy. I took so much shit for my last name, but it is what it is. And Zain, I got to say this, got to compliment you. Beard is beautiful, man. That is, you see, you go all the way up to the lip as well. Not a lot of people have it. And I feel like an asshole.
Patches, I get it as a design, but when you got it, I respect it. Fill it up, right? Let it ride.
Exactly. Fill it up, let it ride. I don't do anything to my beard. And right now, there's really not a lot going on with it. Yeah. It's unfortunate. But my girlfriend, she's not a huge fan of the beard like that you have now. She's just moved back east for a little bit. We're just doing a little bit of a long-term thing at the moment because she got a really great job out there before I move out after the football season. Gotta tell you, with her gone, Zain, beard's coming back.
Yeah. Is it today? Tomorrow marks 4 months. This is 4 months of growth right now that I'm rocking with. And my wife does not love it, but she's riding so far. So I was like, listen, you just gotta, I told her 6 months and I'll reevaluate. So after 2 months, we're gonna see where we're at. But there's a solid chance I'm gonna just keep going here.
There is a solid, you should too. I mean, when I first shaved, I felt like the wind, and I live in Arizona. I thought the wind hit me in the face. I was like, wait, it's cold here? No, it wasn't cold. It was just my face was bare. I didn't have that beautiful hair to just cover it all up.
Yeah, you know what? People are putting on hats and gloves, and I was like, no, I got my beard. My face is fine. I don't know about you guys, but my face is fine. So sucks and sorry to the people who cannot grow beards. I do not know what that is like. This is a privilege that I'm happy to have. But let's get right into football. And before we do, let's tell a little bit about you. Like I said, you're one of my favorite Twitter accounts, probably when I started becoming more Giants-centric in this world. You're one of the first accounts I followed because I just love the content you were pushing out. It wasn't so much necessarily, here's always my thoughts. It's here's some data, here's a visual. Let me know what you think. This is how I interpret, right? How do you see what you see? And then you would follow up with yours, more of a response as so much, I'm going to put my thoughts out. It was more like, let me frame something and then you come back at me. It's kind of how I interpret. So I enjoyed that engagement. Now, I'm not sure if that was your mark or that's what you were going for, but that's how I took it. And I always enjoyed that a little bit.
I try to be objective with my analysis, and it's hard when you're a fan. Like I'm a diehard New York Giants fan. Not a lot of people know this. I have a Giants tattoo. You know,
you said it. I got to see it now. Like,
it's on my ribs. I got the tattoo on my ribs, Zain, because at that time I said the Giants have put me through so much pain, and honestly, they didn't. I had already experienced a Super Bowl at that point. I was just being a spoiled little brat. Could you imagine being a Jets fan? Anyways, I digress. But I said, I want to experience the most painful place to get a tattoo, and that is on the ribs. I just got this tattoo. I was in the Marines at the time, and I was like, that was nothing. Let me get a tattoo on the ribs. Boom. I was like, oh, it was pretty painful. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So you got to stand up. I got to see it. On the ribs or not, we got to see it.
No. I'm way too, dude. Trust me, it's not going to happen. I'm way too hairy. And it's just not going to happen. But
describe it for me.
It's Giants from my armpit down to almost my hip, like it's ripped in my skin. It's one of the corniest, dumbest tattoos you'll ever see, but it also has Super Bowls carved in around it. So it has
at some point when you're back on the East Coast and we link up, I just need to see. I don't care how hairy you are. I gotta see the tattoo, man. So we'll figure that. That's okay. I'm a brown man. I mean, I'm like Wolverine here, so that's okay too.
I'm sure. And I'll circle back to your question just on the New York Giants and how I see, I guess, myself. I do try to just be objective, and I hope I do a good job at that, breaking down the film. I love football. I coached football. I've done scouting courses and things of that nature, and just made a lot of friends around the media space within football. And I just like to break down the film and attempt to educate while also having fun discourse with people among Giants Twitter and just people in general.
Sure. So you bring up a really, really interesting point and word that's really, really hard to find on social media. I don't think there's a lot of objectivity, right? It's very personal. I don't want to say, tunnel vision per se, but most takes are very personal. Most responses are very personal. It's very hard for people to just be high level objective. Anything you say or do generally isn't taken objective, depending on the narrative that's interpreted what you're saying.
Sure.
So how do you feel about objectivity when it comes to social media, where really and truly you got, an X amount of characters, an X amount of time to put up a video, or whatever the case may be, without having to obviously sit here and completely write an entire essay about your context of what you're saying? How do you feel like you're able to fine line that objectivity, which again, you do an amazing job. How do
Thank
you
you.
feel like you're balancing that?
I'm not the biggest fan of social media, Zane. If I'm going to be just flat out honest, I'm on it
Sure.
because it's good for my professional career, and it's also just an excellent resource. And if it's used correctly, it can really enhance whatever you're doing.
Of
It's
course.
just there's a lot of people on there. There are a lot of opinions on there, and it's a medium where you're typing on a keyboard and you're sending it out into the ether where other people can see it. It's not a medium of even this medium right here, and we're not even in the same room. We're not even in the same state on the same coast. We're having a conversation, and I can see your facial features, and I could see when you get upset, and I could see when you get excited.
Sure.
In person, you can have that type of dialogue, but over the internet, that stuff is just lost. So people, there's no repercussions for going out and being as, I guess, mean or crude, which I feel like really is something you find so often on social media is people treating others who do not have the same opinion as them as they're lesser than. And I don't really like that kind of high moral ground that people sometimes take within
Sure.
social media. And I just think the construct of social media, how it's set up, it makes it so difficult to actually sit there and have a discussion. It's very hard to do that. People just get
Absolutely. Because, like you said, you can't get punched to the face through your phone, right?
it's
That's
even it's even beyond that. Like,
I
yes, you 100% you can't get punched in the face through your phone, but it's also just like if you have a discussion with somebody face to face, you're not gonna be as belittling to their opinion. You're gonna try
sure,
to like actually see what they're saying more than likely if they're being respectful, right?
of
But
course.
respect is something on social media that doesn't necessarily exist, I guess, because like
Yeah.
you don't need to respect. Everybody is what they put out there. They're just that opinion. They're not necessarily a person behind that. And I do try to at least be open to swaying my opinions depending on whatever it is, right? Like if there's new news that is put out in front of me, I'm going to take that into account. And that can all I'm not married to what I think,
Wait a
right?
minute. You think you can change your mind on social
Yeah.
media? Oh, man, I
Oh,
don't
oh,
know.
well,
I don't
not
know.
not necessarily on social media, but just in general, when you come across new information that has not been presented to you yet, you can take that information and be like, huh, I didn't really see it that way, or I never really considered this. So maybe now I should look at it from this perspective, and that could
Sure.
change your overall outlook on whatever you're looking into at the time.
Right, and that's a great mindset. That's really how it should be, right? Your opinion's on based on the information you know right now, but the information changes, and therefore your opinion can change. They go hand in hand. Just making a joke about how it's almost impossible to
Yeah.
say anything differently on social media because someone will go through your tweets and be like, "Hey, look what you said 8 months ago." I'm not the same person I was 8 seconds ago, buddy. So I'm not sure what I said 8 months ago. But in that case, like I said, you're doing an amazing job. Give me a little bit more about your professional journey, a little bit, right? What do you
Okay.
do today? How did you end up doing it now? You're a veteran, so absolutely thank you for that. On top of that, so give me a little bit of journey. You're from Jersey, right?
Yep.
We spoke like maybe a year and a half, 2 years. It's been way, way too long, and it's a great time. Give us a little bit of a quick journey about Nick. How did Nick end up here today?
Nick ended up here today. Okay, I'm not going to refer to myself in third person. So
No,
I
that's
ended up
amazing.
I ended up here today. I got out of the Marines. It was 2012 and I wasn't 100% certain what I wanted to do or my path. So all I knew was I loved football and I wanted to learn as much as I could about this game that I loved. I played a little bit growing up. I played in high school and all that. So I was like, I want to get involved in this. And I don't know whether that's going to be through scouting or through journalism. So I ended up just going to county college and I studied exercise science. I got my little associate's degree in that before going to FDU to get my master's degree in sports administration. I don't really necessarily use either of those degrees right now because I'm much more involved in a journalistic type of approach and just I'm doing something different than a lot of, I guess, normal quote unquote people are doing as a content creator, which I don't even really like that term. But regardless, while I was in college, I enrolled in a bunch of online classes and I coached for my college football team. So I was coaching at FDU under Jimmy Robertson and Coach Sirace, if you want to go with the old Italian pronunciation of it. And I learned a lot from that. And I linked up with Dan Hatman, who runs the scouting academy. And I was in one of the first classes of that. It's an online academy. You basically evaluate trait-based type of evaluations on players in the NFL, and he grades them. He was a former NFL scout for the Giants, Jets, and the Eagles. I ended up becoming a teaching assistant through that. I went to Mobile a bunch of times because of that. Linked up with the Inside the Pylon guys that was ran by Mark Schofield, who is within this space as well. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of who he is if you follow at least the Big Blue Banter podcast, because we've had him on. He's a quarterback guru type of individual. And I was just writing for free doing that. And eventually I just ended up latching on with Big Blue View, Ed Valentine, and Patty Traina over at Giants Country doing Giant stuff, and linked up with Dan Schneier. He was looking for a co-host. I was like, I know the X's and O's. And at that point, I had a couple years of coaching under my belt. I had a bunch of evaluation courses under my belt. I've been watching football for a really long time. I felt like I had a solid grasp on what was going on. And even now, I do feel like I have a solid grasp, but there's still so much that you can learn. That's the one thing I love about this sport so much, Zane, is there is so much information to be had, because so many different coaches do so many different things, and they do them differently, even though it might be the same type of technique or the same mindset or the same type of defense against a certain offensive look. They're doing it differently. So you can never know everything. And that's one of the things I love the most about football. So long story short, I just basically networked really well, got to know a lot of people who were smarter than me, who taught me really well about the game of football. And next thing I know, I was working in it professionally. But for a couple years, I was just doing a bunch of writing for free.
Excellent. Like I said, the quality shows. Like I said, one of my favorite accounts to follow is Nick's, and not just his social media account, but as he's mentioned, right, Big Blue View, the pod, everything. Just always great insight. So now you come to this space, 1 and 2. What the hell's happening, right? Give me a little bit of last year, and there's a lot happening, right? It's not one thing. There's a lot happening in your forefront now that you've had a little time to digest what you've seen through 3 games. What are your biggest pain points that just make you go question mark? And that could be isolated to, what, I'm holding my opinion to just these 3 weeks. I'm holding my opinion to these 3 weeks plus training camp, or I'm holding it to this and previously what I've seen from last season. So however you want to formulate this, what are the first couple things that come to your forefront of what's going wrong right now?
So the Giants had an offseason that was full with a lot of hype, rightfully so. They made the playoffs after a lot of people thought they wouldn't. They defeated the Minnesota Vikings on the road, first playoff win since the Super Bowl back in 2011, which actually happened in 2012. But regardless, man, like, they got punched in the mouth against the Dallas Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Like, the balloon was inflated with all this positive air, and it just got sucked right out.
Yep.
And I think they're suffering some setbacks from that just absolute clobbering that the Cowboys put on them. And then you saw that kind of bleed into week 2 against the Cardinals. Luckily, at halftime, they were able to figure it out, and they took advantage of the fact that the Cardinals defensive backs were very aggressive on Darren Waller. And then you saw in San Francisco, very aggressive game plan to eliminate Darren Waller just by bracketing him inside out. Giants really didn't have a remedy to that. And the fact that their offensive line was in the state that it was in gave Daniel Jones very little time. But I think they're suffering from a lack of confidence. I think week 4 is imperative. It's critical to the success of the 2023 season and what the hell is going to happen to this Giants team. The defense, they added a lot of new faces, and I still think they're trying to gel together. Micah McFadden, he's missing a lot of tackles, but he's at least in position a lot in terms of fitting the run. That's something that was my primary concern heading into this season, is how is this team going to fit the run against power gap, counter type of concepts? They were terrible last year. The linebackers never knew where to be. Micah McFadden needs to finish better, but he's at least in position. Okereke I don't really necessarily see him being in position as much as I felt like he was going to be. The run defense is still somewhat suspect. I'm trying to attribute that, Zain, to the fact that these are just a lot of new faces, a lot of players having more on their plate, the Jason Pinnocks. You have the 2 young cornerbacks. So the slow progression of the defense is one thing that does concern me. If you look at the offense, I think a lot of that stems from the offensive line. I know a lot of people don't like Daniel Jones slander. I'm not trying to slander him, but I still see how some defensive coordinators are calling the game to make Daniel Jones beat them. They're playing everything top down, driving down on short things, and not respecting the field side when the ball is on that far hash. That's something we saw by essentially every defensive coordinator within the division last year against the Giants. The Eagles were doing that. The Washington team, the Commanders, whatever the hell they're called now, they were doing it. And then Dallas as well. And we saw it, I think, a little bit against Arizona. DJ ended up making them pay. I think Daniel Jones can make all the throws. I think Daniel Jones is a great athlete. He's a good leader. I think he has all the tools. He just doesn't consistently put it all together. And when you're playing teams like Dallas and San Francisco, who vastly are just, they have more talent than you, you need that quarterback to put it all together. So it's not all on Daniel Jones by any stretch of the imagination. It's very difficult to execute when your offensive line is in the state that they were in through those games. So I don't want to make it like it is all on Daniel Jones. But right now, they don't have, and this is unfortunate because we thought they did, or at least there was a chance they did. They don't have the team to compete with the top dogs. So yes, you can beat these bad football teams and maybe you can have some success against poorly coached defenses. But what are you going to do when you're in the playoffs against a team that, like the 49ers, or the teams that are even in this division, including Washington, which the Giants can't beat, certainly. So that's something that I think we got to take week by week and see what progresses. I think, again, week 4 is going to be very telling, Zain.
What do you think, or what did you think of the game plan versus the 49ers on offense? Why do you think the run was more or less eliminated or non-existent? They seem like they're forcing this is what it looks like, right? They seem like they're forcing the pass, or maybe they want to use the pass to set up the run. I'm not necessarily sure. We didn't see a lot of Barkley until the second half, if that. More play action RPO came into, like I said, second half of what we saw in Arizona has been nothing like any of the other quarters. That's an isolated thing to me. Those 2 quarters don't attach to the other, what is it, 10? Something like that? 12 quarters, right? So what is it that makes them not want to use the run? Even removing Saquon fine is hurt. Why is there no emphasis on the run when that was kind of their bread and butter? Their offensive line even is a better run blocking than pass blocking. Why the hesitation, in your opinion?
So I think they wanted to come out, I guess, throwing the quick stuff to slow down that pass rush. I don't know if they had a lot of confidence in their offensive line to block it up, but also the 49ers run a different type of front. They run an even front, which is 4 guys down on the line of scrimmage. They usually run it over front, which means a 3 technique. The guy over the outside shoulder of the guard is going to be to the strength. And then you're going to have a 1 technique, which means he's going to be shaded to the backside of the center, and then 2 wide players. Giants, the rushing play, I guess you could say, like the philosophy, they like to change it up. They like to diversify their attack, but I think they're most comfortable running GH counter, GT counter, a counter variation, which means they're pulling 2 guys from the backside of the play and they're bringing them over to the front side. And what that does is it creates extra gaps for the defense to account for, puts an onus on the linebackers to scrape and flow over the top to fit that, something the Giants really struggle to do on the defensive side of the football. The Giants like doing that on offense. Against the 49ers, you can't really do that as well because of the structure of the defense. And they have 2 of the fastest, smartest, quickest, most violent linebackers in Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. So they attempted to use a play that they used down the stretch last year, which I liked. It's just wham double trap, which means they take that H back. It's usually ran in 12 personnel, which is usually Daniel Bellinger, and he blocks an unblocked defensive lineman who runs up the field, and the guard or center who is over the top of that defensive lineman just lets him by and runs up to the second level to get the linebackers. This is how Matt Breida scored his touchdown. They also ran it, I think, 2 other times. But I think they went into the locker room and they said that same exact thing, saying the Giants. They were like, we need to run the football a little bit and slow this down and get that defense tired. And they ran it twice on that opening drive, and it went for 1 yard. They had a 2-yard gain and then a 1-yard loss. And I just think the 49ers were too violent and dialed in, because they do play the pass top down against the Giants because they weren't necessarily threatened deep by the Giants receivers and the protection not taking care of Daniel Jones. So that's what I at least believe. And I also think Dable would like to pass, and you don't have Saquon Barkley. So all those factors kind of go into why they were a little bit, I think, hesitant to run the football.
Sure. Seattle's a big one, like you said, right? We don't want to call it a must win, but it is 1-3. The way it's looking, I think, because it looks so much worse too, right? It's not just the result; it's the way it's happening. It's not looking great either. I'm gonna just throw a couple names because I know I don't have a lot of your time. I'll just a couple names. Just give me your opinion on this. To throw some players out there, just give me your opinions. It could be as much or as little as you want, right? I'm just gonna say random names. And you brought one up, Okereke.
Okereke, I think he's been underwhelming. Not nearly in position as much as I would like. Not nearly the force against the run that I figured. Almost to the point where I'm looking at Micah McFadden, and besides the fact that he's not tackling as well, but I'm like, at least he's in position. But again, their assignments are a little bit different. But if I had to use one adjective, it would be underwhelming.
And that's a good one. I sadly feel the same way because he was the linebacker I wanted in free agency, sideline to sideline. He was the one I was like, this is going to be great. And I'm not seeing it just yet, which again, like you, disappointing was probably the word, but underwhelming is a good one too. Xavier McKinney.
He's also a little bit underwhelming. I know we just did a piece at Big Blue View. I haven't read it yet, but I'm meaning to. Rivka Board, one of our writers over there, just wrote it up. I encourage people to go read it because I do trust her work. But I haven't gotten around to it. Xavier McKinney in Patrick Graham's system, Zain, was used a little bit more off the line of scrimmage. We applauded the fact that Wink Martindale was going to blitz him more. I think he's good in that role, but I don't know if it's maximizing what he does best, which is kind of break on the football, read the offensive intentions, and then make plays like we saw throughout 2021, which was his only healthy season because he missed most of his rookie year with the foot injury that he suffered in training camp. So if I had to nail it down to a couple words, I would just say, give us a little more. I still think he's a good overall football player, but he's not making those splash plays right now, and that's just the sad reality of it.
Do you see him being re-signed? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, he's in a contract year. Do you? Because I mean, I'm sure he wants top money, like most guys do. So we're talking double digit for safety, right? He's going to want 10 plus, probably 12 plus. What would you do? You know his body of work so far. You've seen him in different schemes. What's your objective opinion? You're the GM. You put your hat on. Am I re-signing Xavier McKinney? And if I am, what is a range that I'm comfortable re-signing him with?
Well, you're right. I think he's going to garner somewhere around that 10 range. I think Marcus Williams got like 14 when he signed with the Ravens. Julian Love only got 6. So the safety market is a little bit unpredictable. They're not getting paid all that much money. And I would not give Xavier McKinney right now anything over 10. No. That's not where I'm at. I think if Xavier McKinney is going to be a Giant, it might be around that number, but I think we need to see him start to take the role that he has in Wink Martindale's system to the next level and start to make these TFLs start to come away with sacks when he is blitzing, and also just PBUs and interceptions. You need takeaways on this defense. Giants had 6 interceptions last season. That's just pitiful. You
bring up an interesting question, and this is what's, I guess, pissing me off more than anything else. Now we start talking about the missed tackles, a ton of them. This team, it looks like it's everyone on defense doing the same thing. Everyone's spending so much time praying to God to get that football out that they're giving up an enormous amount of yak. You can see every single person not trying to tackle, but how do I get the ball out? And they're not getting the ball out. No. At what point does it become, okay, I just need to stop this guy and not tell him stress. You know what? It's game 3 and we don't have a turnover. It's game 4 and we're not causing a turnover. If we don't cause a turnover, we can't help our offense. That's in the back of their mind that we need to call, and you can see it. They're forcing to try to cause a turnover. It's not happening. They're getting killed. How do you find that balance there?
Glass half full perspective is this will come with time. These are a lot of new faces on the defense. So maybe you could say before they had a lot more continuity and it was like, hey, first guy, you go for the tackle, second guy, go for the strip. Now a lot of people are just getting, big doughy eyes, seeing the football out there, attempting to go for the strip, and no one's going for the tackle. In the Giants defense, which is funny because I'm talking about defensive players, I don't think I really need to defend them. It was a pitiful effort against the 49ers, but they were going up against 2 of the more physical ball carriers who aren't running backs in the league, and Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Not saying that as an excuse, but I'm just saying it merely to hope that regresses a little bit and the Giants do start securing their tackles. And it's going to be a major coaching point. How many times did we see Deebo and George Kittle just break tackles? I think Jason Pinnock needs to be much better. He's a physical guy. For him to be missing tackles so wildly and not securing them, that's got to change as well. And that's not something Julian Love did with the Giants last season, but according to just the film I've seen, he's missed a solid amount of tackles through 3 games in Seattle. Hopefully he
missed 2 tackles on one play. I wanted to punch my wall. I don't remember who it was. I saw him go for the tackle. He fell down, missed, got up, went for it again and missed. I was like, what's happening here? What is actually happening here? I would actually maybe swap out a little bit of the McKinney versus Pinnock assignment. He seems to be much better off the edge. That's how he's getting his tackles for loss. He gets to the quarterback because he's honestly 2 shades quicker than McKinney. 4-4 guy, 4-6 guy. So I think he would be better off, and then maybe throw McKinney a little bit back into the free safety coverage. I've even brought up, give my guy Dane Belton in the 3 safety look maybe a little bit of a go. Maybe that'll help change
And
things up a little bit.
it could if they trust Dane Belton in the run fits, which is a whole nother, because
Yeah,
again, one thing you always got to look at with the defense is your run defense, your ability to fit the run is married to your coverage. All that stuff is married together. And if
sure.
you don't trust the safety in the run fit, then you're more than likely not going to want him out there unless it's an obvious passing situation. And that's one reason why we don't see 19 Isaiah Simmons out there all that much, because the Giants right now, he is new. But even if you go through his Cardinals tape, it wasn't the best when it comes to fitting the run and just being where he needed to be and being assignment sound as a run defender. One more point on the Xavier McKinney discussion. Giants do have 2 young safeties that they apparently like in their building, with Dane Belton and Javarius Owens. So, and then Pinnock, if you want to throw him in there, but he's a starter. So that's just another, they have contingency plans if the McKinney situation does not work out for them.
Gun to your head, is he back?
I'm going to say yes, and I hope the Giants turn it around, but I think I'm being optimistic.
And that's fair, right? We are fans at the end of the day. So there's that little part of you. So fair enough. So another name which has been pretty disappointing and shocking for me is, and again, one of my favorite rookies, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, man.
I was watching this tape today, and I was just like, is he sleepwalking? I'm watching it, and he looks upright on everything. I see no type of power whatsoever, not even attempt at a bull rush. It even looks like in his pass rushes that he's thinking while he's trying to do what he's doing. I can almost see him like pointing to things while he's thinking. It seems ridiculous what I'm saying, but that's what I felt like I was watching. A guy overthinking every pass rush, strictly trying to finesse, and it's not working at all. The finesse, not even trying the bull rush in any form. So give me a little thoughts on his tape so far, because it hasn't looked very pretty for him, and we're not seeing anything we saw last year.
Thoughts on Kayvon Thibodeau's tape? Hesitant would be the word I would use. Very hesitant. And you alluded to that there. And there were a couple plays to the Cardinals game where I was like, man, why aren't you going at the quarterback? The one in particular was when Jason Pinnock blitzed off the edge on the same side. They ran a GT counter, meaning they pulled their backside guard and their tackle. So nobody was there to account for either of those players. Kayvon Thibodeau had a free run at James Conner at the mesh point, which he should have taken. And then Jason Pinnock, because it was a zone read play, can account for the quarterback since he's also there. But for whatever reason, Kayvon Thibodeau just stopped his rush, and James Conner went and ran for like 22 yards. And there was another play where he was looping inside off of a twist, hesitant again. He saw Josh Dobbs. No one was in front of him. He kind of stutter stepped, and then he exploded in, and Dobbs got the football off for a big gain, I think, to Michael Wilson, the Stanford kid. So hesitant would be my main issue. Hesitancy would be my main issue with Kayvon Thibodeau and Zain. I don't see a progression from a pass rushing standpoint in terms of getting to his secondary moves and having a pass rush plan. And that's something that I did see at Oregon in regards to him actually putting some moves together. It wasn't just always power. It wasn't just always speed. He would build some moves off of each other and set offensive linemen up throughout the game. And I have not seen that yet. I'm wondering if is he being used too much as a curl flat defender? Is he being used too much in that Sam role? Is there too much on his plate? Maybe Wink Martindale needs to dial it back. But if that is the case, who is that Sam? Because the Sam is a very important role within the system of Wink Martindale. Tyus Bowser was the player who ran it in Baltimore. And if it's not Kayvon, I don't really know who's going to step in. I mean, is it going to be Boogie? I don't think Boogie is necessarily that type of individual. Aziz can't stay healthy. Jihad Ward isn't that guy. So they need more from Kayvon Thibodeau. There's no question about that. It's just, I do question if they put a little bit too much on his plate and he's a little bit verklempt at the moment.
Sure. I cringe every time I see him drop into coverage now, because he's really your only true pass rush stud on the outside, at least, right? We know what we have up the middle, and even Leo was a lot better. Sans that stupid roughing the passer call, but whatever. And then Dexter has been consistently their best player on defense, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, not even close. So yeah, I don't, like I said, Aziz in there, O'Shane Zimenez. I don't even know why he makes the field, but right now it's because Aziz can't play. That's why he's on the field. Otherwise, it's not like he does much anyway. So yeah, it's like we're starving, but it comes back to that same question where I think everyone's asking the same question. What is Wink asking these guys to do? Because that's the part we don't know. right? We can
Yeah.
infer based off what we're seeing. You can infer better based on the coverages and their assignments that you're seeing that, Wink is probably asking him. The question is, why is this the move when last year this wasn't the move? What's changed in the chess game now to say, we should do this because we have X, Y, and Z? And it might just come down to, like you said, with the addition of Okereke, Pinnock speed being added. Oh, we have Simmons, and just not figuring it all out just yet. Because practice and training camp is one thing, live competition is another.
Exactly. And also, there's just so many different moving parts to the defense that maybe they're dropping Kayvon a little bit more into coverage. And I'm looking up his stats from last year because I know he didn't drop at this rate. Because I'm wondering if they're just doing it because they have two young cornerbacks starting on the outside, which is unfortunate. Last year, he dropped 71 times into coverage, Kayvon Thibodeau. Through 3 games, he dropped 22 times. So he's on a slightly more pace as of right now.
Yeah,
I want to see him rush more.
That's a good 40% uptick. That would be a good 40% drop uptick on him. That's insane. That's an insane percentage jump.
You don't have the veterans of Adoree Jackson being on the outside, and even Fabian Moreau for that matter, right? Like, because you had that pleasure last year having 2 veteran cornerbacks, and you could say what you want about Fabian. I thought Fabian Moreau did
a great job.
Very good job for the Giants.
Very good. All things considered, getting him like the week before, he did an excellent job.
100%. Now you're starting 2 rookies. And the lights are bright. And I think they're both holding up well. Trey Hawkins, the tackling was an issue against the 49ers. But in terms of
trying to knock it out, hit stick on Madden, no wrapping up, just going for the gusto on every play.
Going for the gusto. Yeah, exactly. So that could be a reason why, sinking him into those underneath coverages and also just putting him over a tight end. A lot of the times he took a penalty against the 49ers doing this. I thought it was kind of a dumb penalty because it was right at that 5-yard marker. But when the tight end releases, he's shoving them off the route, either to the inside where there's a defender with inside leverage, or just jamming them at the line of scrimmage, disrupting that release till he sinks to the curl flat underneath what would be a curl route if the number 1 or the number 2 receiver on that side were to run a curl.
Are you loving the Adoree to the slot experiment? I didn't love it even when it started. I'm not a big fan. I think he's got good size for the slot, right? He's got the speed. The reps just haven't been there since the Tennessee days. It seems like it's almost kind of spelling the end for him, as far as I'm concerned, in a Giants uniform by moving him into the slot, because he's going to want to get paid as an outside guy. Somebody's going to pay him to be an outside guy as long as he's healthy, because he's still very good, in my opinion. He was very good last year. So two-part question. One, is this the end of Adoree as a Giant in the slot? And how much are you loving the slot experiment? Yeah, fine. They got the 6th rounder and all that. Would you have put Trey Hawkins right then and there and moved Adoree in the slot?
I think it speaks to the desperation of the Giants, because the Giants spent a day 2 pick on a guy you think would be a slot defender in Cordell Flott. He's not really dressing all that much. I think he's been active for 1 game, and they activated Darnay Holmes, who ended up playing when Deonte Banks went out for the 49ers. They want to get their best 3 out there. And from a 30,000-foot view, grand scheme of things, I appreciate that. But I still believe Adoree Jackson is similar to Xavier McKinney, I guess, being a little bit minimized, and maybe his talent isn't being maximized. Is probably a better way to phrase it, out in there or on the inside. But they don't have another guy. If you want your best 3 out there, it is those guys. If you want a slot guy out there, you're going to put Trey Hawkins on the bench and you're going to put Darnay Holmes in there. And I would say the secondary is worse with that outcome. So you just got to pick and choose, and maybe you can diversify and change things up. And I think the Giants have done that a little bit, and they were forced to because of the Deonte Banks arm injury. But I would say I would prefer Adoree on the outside. It's just then who you have playing the slot, and that's just the trade-off of it.
Yeah, I would play Flott. Maybe I don't know any better, but the fact that he's not even getting reps after getting a fair amount at least last season, right now, some of the questions coming towards me are development-based. Why is Flott not? I mean, look, Durag Darnay's my guy, but he's hit or miss my guy, right? So it's either a flag or a play, and there's nothing in between with him, for me at least, right? That's what happens. Why not give some of these guys a chance? Like, Izuda's a 67th pick. Desperation forced him to finally get some burn. Why Glowinski was the choice, I have no idea. I have a hard time believing they couldn't beat him out. There could have been continuity. There could have been, this is just my guy, whatever. There's probably a multitude of reasons that I don't know. But as far as taking a guy to the 67th pick and the second year still not starting, that's worth a red flag to me. Like, what am I missing as to why you would draft somebody so high and him not being ready? Granted, he had the neck injury. But guess what? Yeah. He didn't hit the pup. No one says a word about his neck or injury. He's good to go. He's getting reps. Okay, why is he not playing? Now, Bredesen's been like a nice surprise because
Yeah.
he was a desperation pickup. He's probably their second best O lineman as far as production goes behind Andrew Thomas. Um, JMS at least is looking pretty good for a rookie. He's doing himself service and justice. But why do you think when Flott is brought up and now Izudu is brought up, why are these kids not getting burned? Is it a development issue? What seems to be the issue?
Well, with the Zudu, I think he played admirably, all things considered,
Yep.
specifically against the Cardinals. He's playing tackle. It's not his natural position.
Hmm.
They started the season with Glowinski, I believe, because they like the continuity and they want a veteran presence next to Evan Neal. And they don't want to start two young, very raw guys on the right side of the offensive line, especially now that they have a rookie center. So they just want a veteran presence. But after week one, it was very apparent that Glowinski is not it. Is not the
He's
guy.
cooked, man. He's cooked.
Yeah, it's cooked. Exactly. So Josh Azudu, I'm imagining Bobby Johnson and the Giants cross-trained him there because they love to do that throughout training camp. But it also seems like he got a lot of run at left guard and then also as the backup left tackle, as we've seen. So how many snaps does he actually have under his belt at right guard? I'm not 100% certain.
Sure.
Right now they're going with McKethan, and I'm okay with it. I don't know if it's going to work out. There's no chance I know if it's going to work out.
Sure.
But you have a 700-pound combo block out there with him and Evan Neal. They move bodies, and I hope they actually run the football a little bit more efficiently and a little bit more. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but I think you do need to execute on those runs to slow down the pass rush of the opposing teams, and that's something the Giants haven't necessarily done all season.
Because I know you have to go, so I don't want to keep you forever. Give me, both on offense and defense, give me a set of moves, handful of both. How do you fix this team going forward? Like today, if you have to make changes, whether that be game planning, whether it be player based, what are the changes you would make today going forward to say, you know what? I think this is going to give us a better result on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I like the game plan against 49ers on defense, the pressure game plan, because you were so outmatched. So this is going to go week to week. I think the Giants proved last year they're very good at scheming against specific opponents. I think they just got to get back to that. And I think they were doing it last week on offense. They couldn't really do it maybe as much as they would have liked because of their offensive line limitations. I don't think you can do much from a personnel standpoint with the current cap situation. The Giants, I don't want to say they went all in this year, but they kind of did, right? Like they gave out some big contracts. They brought the band back together. I don't think they expected to look this bad. Maybe they expected, they would never say this, maybe they expected to be 1-2 because you have Dallas and you have the 49ers. Now they're right back there. If you can have a short memory and get back to who you know you are, your identity, hopefully Saquon Barkley comes back healthy because that's a big recipe to this, then maybe you could start actually moving the football on offense. I would say run the football a little bit more would be something. The opposing defense have really figured out what the Giants did last year. A lot of play action boot, get Daniel Jones on the move, and they're containing Daniel Jones. And that shiny new target he has, number 12, they're getting their eye on him. So you need those other ancillary pieces to step up. The Darius Slaytons, the Isaiah Hodgins, and the one that I think can help move this offense is Wan'Dale Robinson. The slot role has been huge for the Giants since Cole Beasley was the player in that offense for Brian Daboll when he was with the Buffalo Bills. I loved how Wan'Dale Robinson looked and moved. So I think his role will expand, and that will help the Giants hopefully move the football and then maybe help set up explosive plays. I think in order to do that, to really maximize your ability to create those explosive plays, you got to run the football and you got to set up the play action because that's the best way that Daniel Jones can actually hit his back foot and fire the football like we saw against Arizona.
Now, I got to ask you the $1 million question or the $40 million question because that's the greatest discourse of all time everywhere. Just give me your thoughts on Daniel Jones as a player. Of course, I believe he can succeed in this league. At what point is it Daniel Jones? At what point is it everything around him? And can he overcome the things around him or the things around him so bad that nobody can overcome the things around him?
I don't think no one could overcome the things around him. I think there are certainly quarterbacks who could. I think Daniel Jones is who he is at this point. He's a quarterback that you can win with, but I still question, is he a quarterback that you're winning? He's the primary reason why you're winning against very good opponents, just because I haven't seen that. I need to see Daniel Jones threaten every inch of the football field. That's what professional quarterbacks do. And I think he has the capability to do that. He has the arm strength to do that. Just the Giants offense doesn't necessarily operate within all of within every inch of the field horizontally, and more so horizontally. And I'm mainly talking about that field side when the ball is on the far hash. Teams just watching how defenses play the Giants. I mentioned at the top of the show, they don't really respect the Giants' ability to hit that deep corner route to the field. They don't really respect the Giants' ability to throw it from the far hash outside the numbers at a consistent rate. So they're allocating a lot more of their coverage to the other parts of the field where the Giants typically operate. So those are my issues with Daniel Jones. But I think he's a good leader. I think he can do this. He just hasn't necessarily put it all together. And I still think that when the first read isn't there, I think the offense does a good job scheming reads to where he can read a conflict defender and then make a decision off the one or the two. If they run a dig route and a drag route and they're high-lowing him, if the linebacker sinks, then you throw the drag. If he squats, then you throw the dig. And I think Jones does a very good job off that. And if that doesn't work out, can Daniel Jones understand I need to get to whatever other concept very quickly, whatever other concept is in this progression? Based on the coverage I see post snap, that was not my preconceived notions of what that coverage was going to be. I know that this player is going to be open. Boom, fire the football. I don't see that too often. I see him do a good job working within what Brian Dable is asking him to do, and then using his athletic ability to extemporize and extend plays. And I think that's who Daniel Jones is. I think he does an excellent job, but against these really good defenses, it's not as apparent. And I think the fact that he has a bad offensive line is certainly compounding the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really hit it on the head right there, especially with Daniel Jones. Not necessarily his processing per se, but between what he's being asked to do, and again, getting to that third, maybe fourth, and taking a shot. It doesn't seem like he wants to necessarily take shots when things are, about to go bad. It's like, well, what do I do? Hell, somebody's down there, chuck it up type scenario, which again, in hindsight, might not be the best idea because that's going to lead to its own issues of turnovers. Go on.
It's just, and the windows are so tight in the NFL. You need to see it before it happens. And there are times where he does, but there are times where he doesn't too. And guess what? Every quarterback you could say that about.
Sure.
But I'm not seeing Daniel Jones make those throws that those other quarterbacks are making. And that's kind of my problem.
Let me ask you a very specific question about him, scenario-wise, and you can tell me if yes, no, maybe so, all right? Let's say the Giants run 60 offensive plays. Out of those 60 offensive plays, let's say 30 are immediately squashed based off of pressure. You can throw 30 out. Out of those 30 remaining, 10 are run plays, 20 pass plays left. Out of those 20 pass plays, he completes 15, he misses 5. The 5 he misses are at times so egregious, or if not so egregious, there are so few opportunities for him that when he does miss, like you said, it compounds and becomes a bigger issue. Do you think there's truth to this, or is it just making something out of nothing? Because that's how I feel. I feel like his handful of misses, the reason his handful of misses get so much more weight to them is because there's so few opportunities for him to begin with at that time.
I see. I'm not 100% sure if I do see opportunities that are on tape that just aren't completed, aren't executed perfectly. And that's not always on Jones. That could be on the receiver running a sloppy route, could be on the protection. But I also think he, like, again, man, I think he does well with what he's asked to do in terms of what you were. I'm not 100% certain on what you were asking me from what you asked just before, but are there opportunities that aren't seized upon? Yes, that's what I'll say.
So what I'll say for more clarity is the opportunities that we're talking about, are they so few and far in between in the overall game plan that the microscope is that much more on him because of how few those opportunities may be? But if you say, no, there's more than a handful of opportunities, he's just not doing it, no problem.
I think it really just depends on who they're playing against and all that. Like, you got to look at that specific type of theory from a game by game standpoint. Because there were games last year against Seattle, he missed a bunch of different opportunities, and I was like, oh my god! Like,
even Detroit when he was forcing, he missed a good chunk of spots.
So, but like, there are other games where there weren't as many opportunities. There really weren't that many opportunities last week. You had the one play to Jalen Hyatt, but it's hard to step up and throw the football when your guard is in your lap. But could you at
shout out to Shane Lemieux. Don't know why you're still on the roster, buddy.
Yeah. But if you saw the cornerback's leverage, could he have thrown the football? Sure. Easy for me to say that sitting here. But I have like seen plays similar to that throughout his time with the Giants where it's just like, are you making excuses for him at this point? Because you watch other quarterbacks. I watch other quarterbacks. I get curious and I watch Justin early. Go turn on the tape, Justin Herbert against Minnesota. People hate hearing Justin Herbert's name evoked here. But the guy is making insane throws under pressure. Kirk Cousins, for instance, gets his ass kicked back there. That guy's pressured all the time. He's taking shots and he's ripping the football to every inch of the field. Jones doesn't really do that. Now, is it because he's not being asked to? Is it because of it's a limitation? You can have that kind of discussion. I'm imagining if the Giants coaching staff trusted him enough to make those throws, they would have it more in his playbook because that would ease the tension of the defense a little bit more and back off that pressure and create other throwing windows to all your other receivers who are out there, because now the defense is really threatened by the fact that you're going to throw it to every inch of the field.
Sure. And you saw that against the Dallas game with the Barkley turnover, right? Diggs just sat on it. Didn't even care to go back with it. Like, yeah, screw it. He's not throwing it there anyway, right? We don't think he's going to. We're just not even going to bother covering it. So that goes back to a little bit what you're saying is they just don't respect that certain things are going to happen. So it's easier for them to game plan of, all right, let's keep everything in these windows because these are the throw he's probably going to go for.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Nick, one more question. Favorite Giants memory, and I'll let you go because I know you're supposed to give me 30. You gave me some more because you're the dopest of all time.
Thanks, man.
And give me your favorite Giants memory.
Favorite Giants memory by far is just 2007 Super Bowl 42. Absolutely love it. There's just that run through the playoffs. Defeating Green Bay Packers, defeating Cowboys. It was very special to me. I was in high school at that time. It was my senior year of high school. So I left for boot camp right after I graduated high school. And it was great to have like that moment with my family and with the Giants before I left. And then I didn't get to see any of the 2011 season. So that really sucked.
Do any particular plays hold up in your head from those games? Again, because there's multiple games. Do any specific plays that just kind of
the David Tyree play and then the Plexico Burris on the fade against Ellis Hobbs was awesome.
Yeah. One of my favorites is the I'm blanking on Antonio Pierce, the one-arm tackle. Antonio Pierce kept it to sideline, just a one-arm double-team tackle. That's one that really kind of sticks on my mind. I think that was the Green Bay game. I feel like that was the Green Bay game. Antonio
Pierce one-arm tackle on the screen. Yeah, Green Bay.
Yeah, that was a great one. But Nick, I want to thank you. Like I said, I know we're over on time, so I want to keep you. Appreciate you so much. Again, if you don't know who Nick is at this time on socials or outside of socials, again, from a professional standpoint between his podcast, are you still with Sports Illustrated as well?
I do work for them, but I'm not like an employee of theirs.
Sure. So, but still doing work for, like I said, you can catch Nick's work. Again, please just go follow me on Twitter. His information's in his bio, the pod as well. And just, again, follow this guy. Great discourse, plenty of objectivity. And as you heard him today, the guy actually knows what he's talking about. So it's fun too, but he's not a know-it-all. Again, more than happy to converse and all that good stuff. So Nick is dope. Appreciate you coming on. And let that beard hang, man. Let me know before you got to come over to the side. Let me know what it looks like before it's all over.
Thank you, Zain. I will do, man.
I appreciate you, man. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Take care, bro.
Take care, bro.